Welcome back to Raw Thoughts Podcast with myself, Mackenzie Tiggs. And I just want to thank everybody for coming along the ride, listening to my co-host life stories, experiences. It's definitely you guys that are making me continue to do this. So thank you. I just want to remind you to share, take a screenshot, send it on your Instagram, your Facebook. Tell all your friends to like and subscribe the show. And that's what's keeping me afloat. So I do appreciate you. Today on the podcast, we have Abi Ness. She is actually an Idahoan. She's grown up here. Her whole family is well integrated within our community in different aspects. She has you have quite a story, Abi.
Thanks. Yep.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, yeah, so I'm born and raised in Idaho, and I feel like that's kind of a rare unicorn nowadays with the influx of people moving here, but great opportunities that brings. And I was, growing up here in Idaho, we were homeschooled all the way through. So it was really fun getting a bunch of different experiences, but my parents were entrepreneurs, so we kind of grew up in the mindset of, do what you're passionate about, love what you're doing. And I tried to follow that, somewhat. But yeah, I love the area here and how much it brings and the opportunities. And I have 6 siblings, so there's never a dull moment and never a quiet moment either.
No.
So it's very entertaining.
I could not even imagine 6 siblings.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Like free entertainment for days.
Oh my gosh. So your parents, what did they do as entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so my dad, he did a handful of different things as a farmer, and he used to be a shepherd, like literally raised and bred sheep back in a different state. But then when he came here, he started his own construction company, and it morphed into a restoration company. And he's been doing that for many, many years in the Treasure Valley. And I was always, so in awe of him being able to do that. And I was very appreciative because he really helped all of us siblings be pretty hard workers and to focus on like, no, you either leave the job site or the home or wherever you're at in a better place that you've left it or that you came into it as. And it was pretty impactful for him and my mom to show us just how far hard work can go. And when you put your mind to something, there's a lot that can happen from it.
Yeah. And I feel like that trait is so far gone, just like being an Idahoan. It's very hard to come by of like an actual true hard worker. I think there's so many like, how do we get around, our time and our work ethic. And so that's amazing. And raising 6 kids.
Oh yeah. Or like 7 kids total, but
yes,
like
7.
6.
Okay.
Yeah,
7.
It's unreal.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how do you think homeschooling impacted you?
Yeah. I think it kind of forced us to look outside the box because a lot of people view homeschoolers as, oh, did you even have a social life, or do you even know how to spell or read? Which it's unfortunate that a lot of people think that, but it really forced us to, have fun outdoors and create. We would build things. We dug holes in the ground, and we were very, very creative on that side. And we would put on plays and dress up and do all kinds of fun things. But it also allowed us a way to see the world in a different way instead of going to public school, which obviously you get quite a view on life in that way too. But we got to travel. I mean, we got to, be a part of social events that were really impactful as well. And they didn't limit us to like, you could only have homeschool friends. Like we had friends at church and people that were believers and non-believers and, homeschoolers, non-homeschoolers, like the whole spectrum. So it was really fun to just see kind of where I fit in best and, really enjoy people a lot more intentionally instead of, oh, I'm friends with these people just because of school. Like, no,
yeah.
I'm friends with them because I want to be friends with them, and they're, great people to be around, or maybe not that great of people to be around at that time. But I loved it, and it helped me see that there was another way of life. You don't have to just go to public school, and I'm not putting it down by any means, but there's other ways to do things and have still a great outcome. So I definitely, when I was in high school, I wanted to, experience like, is it like what it, in movies? Like, is that what, cafeterias are like? I had no idea.
No, it sucks.
Right.
I wish I was homeschooled.
And I'm like, I don't know what it's like to go on a school bus and all that. But but it was really fun. We made it a lot of fun. I had tons of social events, and I did dance, and some of my siblings did, sports and stuff. So it was really fun. It was challenging in many ways too, but I'm thankful for the experience that it gave me.
That's awesome. So you made a comment about like where you fit in, right? Mm-hmm. So where did you fit in? Like what did you do besides dance and to stand out as, a sibling?
Yeah. Wow. I started to see that I wasn't necessarily just fitting in, especially in those days, it was like you were a punk or you're a surfer chick or not really even Idaho, but I wanted to be a surfer chick. But I kind of felt like I loved all areas. And that's why even like my fashion nowadays, like I love so many different aspects of fashion. I love so many different aspects of life because I got to see so many different types.
Yeah.
But yeah, it shaped me knowing that, again, I didn't have to be the status quo. I didn't have to do everything the same way that everyone else did. Because for sure, I got picked on, like, oh, you're homeschooled, like, you're a goody two shoe. I'm like, why is that a bad thing? I mean, right. And in some ways, I wasn't like that good of a person, but it's like, why can't I not be like everyone else? Like, I think that's pretty cool,
Yeah.
So.
I think it's the unheard of that we latch on to, and if you're not like everybody else, then you're just the outcast. And homeschooling, in Idaho, there's a handful of people that are homeschooled, but public school is the norm.
Yeah.
So if you're not in public school, then you're the outcast and you're the weird one.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to embrace that. You're like, yep, that's me.
Like, yeah, that is me. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I was very confident in it.
That's awesome. So, with your parents being entrepreneurs, has that gone through the rest of your siblings as well? I mean, I know Hannah, she does amazing with Empowered Women Connect, your sister with her store. Tell us a little bit about your siblings and how everybody else has kind of followed that path.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting with how we all have gone that direction, because initially we weren't really going that direction. We're just like, oh no, we're going to live our own life and do our own thing and not necessarily just follow in my parents' footsteps. But eventually it kind of started all with my brothers. So they own a videography and photography company, Silverline Films, and they started, kind of doing the business on the side while they were working for my dad full time. And, my dad would do everything he could to help them out, but they were doing their thing. And then gradually as they, kept taking off, I mean, now they're literally going all over the world filming videos and, so many different things. And now, then watching like my sister started a company and then my next sister started a company. And it was really beautiful how it evolved, because we just thought, I don't know, we probably won't. But then we're like, wait, there's really something onto this. We really like this, and on the lifestyle that it brings and the freedom. And so, yeah, it started with my brothers and then my sisters and then me I started my company 4 years ago, and then because I just kept saying, oh no, I don't want to do exactly what everyone else is doing. Like, I'm going to be in the corporate world and climb the ladder kind of thing. And I was, but then the world changed for me. So,
so how did the world change for you? You were in corporate. You started a business 4 years ago, which we'll talk about. But, did you go to college and then decide you were going to go the corporate way, or how did that evolve?
Yeah. So out of high school, I really had a heart for missions and international travel in any way, shape, or form. So I started going to college to get, either a business degree or, some kind of degree that I would enjoy. I didn't think I would go into business because nope, not going to do that. But then I started working for my dad as his bookkeeper and office manager for his company. And while he was seeing my expertise coming out in administrative work and organizing, he was like, wow, you could do this for other people. And I was like, no way. I'm not going to do what my dad does, or do what he says. But as I was going through college and then I studied abroad, I got even more of a desire for just kind of the flow of business and what that looks like. So deep down, I was like, oh, maybe, I don't know. And so, but yeah, during college, it was awesome to get another route of quite different type of classes. I ended up going for communication through Boise State University. So Smurf turf for life.
Yeah.
I'm a Boise State graduate. I'm very proud of it.
That's awesome.
And so with that degree, there's a lot of different electives you could take. So I was able to take some business classes and art and history. And then when I studied abroad in Norway, there was other classes as well that I got to dive into that were kind of more on the medical history side. And I loved it. I'm like, I like all of it. I don't know what to choose. But thankfully with this degree, it just kind of, I was able to put my hand in a bunch of different things. And, the thing that just kept resonating with me was still some type of flow and function with business, but travel and international. I mean, just all of it was fascinating to me. So from the college, I was able to really launch from that and then go into more businesses or companies afterward to walk that out.
So you did, you were in Norway.
Mm-hmm.
What was Norway like?
Norway was a dream. It's so beautiful. So I'm 100% Scandinavian. We're 75% Norwegian and 25% Swedish.
Wow.
And one of my sisters did get the testing. So we were like, we are
I'm
stamp
like,
of approval.
I have no idea what I am.
Well, and that's the fun thing is that like we thought, oh, well, what if the test comes back, in a different way? Like you were completely not Scandinavian this whole time we've been lied to.
Oh, that's funny.
But thankfully it, came back correct. But yeah, living in Norway was, again, it just like ignited another level of me of passion for other cultures and how they run business or the lack thereof. I mean, Norway definitely doesn't have the focus of entrepreneur as America does, but they run their country in a very interesting way as well. But they're beautiful and they care so much. They speak multiple languages. They're very focused on making sure everyone is taken care of and everyone has a job and getting paid well and goes on holiday. And it was extraordinary. And just seeing their way of life and how much they value just the day-to-day, time with friends. And one of their slogans, I know it's plenty other places too, but I started learning there was it's never bad weather, it's bad clothing. Mm-hmm. So they'd be out like walking their kids and going to the park when it's raining and snowing out.
Wow.
Because they're like, no, put on nice, warmer clothes and go and enjoy nature and be out there. And it was so cool.
That's awesome. That's a great reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Like the tools that we have, the resources we have, like use them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why can't you go out there? Oh, it's raining. Well, it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah, like get an umbrella. Mm-hmm. Like, wow, that makes me look at my life a little differently now.
I brought my umbrella today.
I know, I saw you with your umbrella. She's like, she's still going to be walking out there.
Totally.
So, in Norway, if I remember correctly, and a little bit of why I, kind of wanted to bring you on to the podcast, you met a man over there.
Yeah, we started talking while I was over there. Okay. So yeah, he still lived in the States and just, sisters knew, his sister, my sister knew each other. And so we just started getting to know each other. And I'd say, oh, I fell in love in Norway, but he was back in the States. So yeah. But yeah, it was unfortunate that it happened there because I really should have been like focusing on my studies and, enjoying the space that I was in and traveling. I mean, I was traveling while I was there, but it kind of took my focus away a little bit.
So you were focusing on the man and not the other fun things.
Yep.
So elaborate and tell us a little bit about that relationship.
Yeah, for sure. So it, as most relationships start, there's, the spark there. And I really thought something could happen with it. So, I come back from Norway and he was living in a different state and we just kept getting to know each other. And, I am someone that gives 110%, not always toward the right thing, but I give everything I am to whatever I'm heading toward or passionate about. And so we just, kept getting to know each other. And then he moved here to Idaho and things kept getting worse, but I was already, pretty in love. Right. And I kept seeing flags, but the red flags, I made them turn into yellow flags, and then they turned into green flags. And I kept, focusing on, well, he's going to get better and he's going to change, or he's, he's on a better path. And I am someone that does want to treat people with respect and, seeing the best in someone. And it was really I hadn't had, that much of a drive in that long to like be with someone and like want to uplift them and help them in any way I could. But I was starting to fight for someone that wasn't fighting for themselves. Yeah. And that's not a good thing.
No. Give us an example of maybe something that was a red flag that you turned to a yellow, that you were like, yeah, it'll be okay. Like I'm kind of overlooking this, because I think a lot of listeners do that in their personal lives as well. And just speak on maybe one of those examples.
Yeah. One of, well, there's a few, especially now years later. I'm like, oh my, so many flags. One of them was though, the levels of addiction. And I'm not saying you can't be with someone that doesn't have that, because there's different levels and where they're at with themselves in that healing process. But with him, it wasn't something he was trying to fix. I thought it was, but the red flag was the addictions that he wasn't adamantly trying to heal from and work on and get help with and recognize and admit. That was not good. But I kept saying, well, I think he's trying. I think, but he would also turn it back on me every time things would be brought up. So that was another red flag, that it was very narcissistic behaviors, that it was never his fault. It was never an issue he was having. It kept on being turned back to me like, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're so weird. Why would you think that? That's that's so dumb. Like, why would you ever say that?
Like, I would never do that to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I'm not that bad. Like, but as I look back on things, like, no, we have intuition. We have our heart, our, the deep gut feelings. Not that we always be led by our feelings, but we are smart human beings, and that's there for a reason. And maybe it wouldn't be like a for sure, say if someone's listening to this and they're in a relationship, they're like, oh, I have that gut feeling that maybe this is going on, and they talk to the person and maybe there isn't something going on, but at least you addressed it, you opened up, you shared that. But that continued to be more red flags of it was never something that he was going through. It was just like, oh no, it's not that bad. You're just going crazy.
Yeah. And so how long were you with him for?
We were, over 3 years. So we were together for about 4-ish years, knew each other about a year-ish ahead of that. So, total 5-ish, 6-ish years.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Who really knows in relationships?
Exactly. And part of it was long distance, and then there was issues on that. I thought we were dating. He did not. So I was like, oh, wow. Oh. Okay.
You're like, all right.
That's awkward. Yeah.
So, ending that relationship, what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So as the relationship progressed, as I kept on putting down my own thoughts, my own feelings as to what I knew my boundaries were being crossed, I wasn't comfortable anymore. And because I pretty much forced so many things at the beginning to be like, oh, no, it's fine. Like, not forced in like relationship wise, but forcing myself to like back down on very adamant red flags of like, I was raised in a very well way. Not that that would determine everything, but I knew what was right from wrong for myself as well.
Yeah.
Sure, I hadn't really been in that serious of a relationship before or that long of one, but I still, I knew me. I knew what I did or didn't want to do and who I was, right? However, through that relationship, that was diminished. My dreams were diminished. My confidence in who I was, my love for who I was, that was all diminished because of those red flags that kept coming up, and a narcissist personality, those overpower everything that you are.
Yeah.
You don't have a voice anymore. You don't have perspectives anymore. And if you do, they're not heard. They're not validated. They're not accurate. They're really put down. So gradually the relationship kept getting worse and worse, but I was in deeper and deeper, and I didn't know how bad it was. I had some family that would try to, rescue me and like, don't you see it, but I was choosing to love, and I really wanted this to work. But I was so in over my head with such a controlling person and such a bad person. And he ended up being a drug dealer. He ended up being on and addicted to drugs ever since we had originally started dating. And he ended up being a very bad person, addicted to multiple other things. And I didn't know all that. It makes sense now that I look back, like, okay, well that makes sense when this and
Right.
such and such happened. And then he ended up being abusive and controlling in every possible way. And so finally he, the law was involved, not on my side, but he was arrested again. And so while he was in jail, we ended it, thankfully. But at that time, though, I was still so in love with him. And it sounds so weird, but when you're in such a controlling situation and you can't see outside of it, it is like you're basically blinded to everything. So thankfully, when it ended, he was not in my life anymore. But the aftermath was devastating. I had nothing left. I had no money in savings. I had given him quite a bit of money. I had no money in savings. I almost lost my job. I was wanting to commit suicide, so I was suicidal. I was over $43,000 worth of debt, and I had no relationship left with my family because when a narcissist is that off, I mean, all narcissists are awful, but
Right.
when they're that controlling and manipulative, they take you away from those loved ones, because the loved ones, they see you and they care for you and they want to help you, but then that's going against what they're trying to do and to
Yeah.
control everything you do.
Yeah.
So he took me away from my family and my close friends. So I had nothing left. So I was like, I'm going to end my life because there's no reason to be left here because I'm left with nothing.
Yeah.
No soul, no heart, no dreams.
And it's hard, listening to this story because I know the version of you and your family.
Yeah.
And there's so many different chapters within life. And to even have that thought of like Abby without her family is really hard because you guys are so close with each other and you guys are, very vocal with each other on like, hey, like, did you even think about this? And that's what they do though, right? Narcissists take you away from people that are going to call you out on it, address the problems. And if they can steer you away from those people and diminish your outlook, then it's kind of this little cocoon that they have you in, and they're just controlling, your life at that point. I'm glad you're still here. And, suicide is definitely not something to take lightly. And especially in our world, I mean, there's so many things that people are going through that you would never, ever, ever think that had crossed their minds. How'd you get out of that rut? Like, what was that aspect of like, no, I'm not going to kill myself. I'm going to take control of my life. Like, what was that?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. There's quite a few things, but one of the many things was my Lord and Savior. I had never been to the spot before of just wanting to end my life. Like there was nothing left in me. There was no spark. There was no joy or anything. And so I was on the ground, and I was living with a very nice friend at the time. And thankfully she was at work during this time, but it was as I was contemplating suicide and I was laying on the floor. The floor was ice cold and I was just shaking. I mean, if you could bleed blood, I probably was. And I'm just like, there's nothing left. There's no hope. And especially realizing what I had put up with that long. Oh, tears. It was, it gets really, it gets frustrating when you see like yourself from, wow, I put up with that. I mean, again, not that you always knew that you were, but I'm like, look at what I just gave the past 5 years, and there's still nothing left. And we were able to break up over, a less than 1 minute conversation, and the 6 years-ish of my life was done and over with him. And I just felt like the Lord just kneeling at my side and just holding me. And it was the hope that there was still something left in me. There was a heartbeat. And he's like, there's something left because I'm here with you. You have hope because I'm here giving you that hope. And he just held me. He held me more than I had been held in a long time, because in a dysfunctional relationship, there's not that real love. So I hadn't felt that real love. And he just held me. He's like, you are hopeful. You have hope because you are alive. You're here. And so so it started the very scary process to get out of that. And one of those was to tell my family that we were no longer together. And I was so scared, not just because there was 8 phone calls to make. I have a big family, or 7, 8, with my parents. So there were a few phone calls to make, but I started making the phone calls. I was like, started with my parents first, and my mom's like, oh, yay, we love you. And I was just like, do you guys welcome me back? Like, I'm so sorry for what I've done. And she's like, no, we've been praying for this moment forever. Or for a long time. And my entire family just welcomed me right back. And I treated them really bad. And there was pain on both sides. Both sides didn't necessarily know how to handle either side very well, right? And but there was so much love that came from that, because they knew God is so much bigger, and they knew that a miracle was going to happen eventually, and it did. And so part of that process was, starting to reconnect with the people that I knew mattered most, and that I had to have them back in my life. So then I moved in with my brothers, because I was in such an emotional, awful spot that, and I was so fearful, like I couldn't even go to my car without being freaked out. I mean, again, he was a drug dealer, so our lifestyle was based on fear of anyone coming around the corner, or, it was so dysfunctional. And and so when I was living with my brothers, it just brought more of like a home back in my heart, being, and I mean, they were traveling half the time, but just being in a safe, secure home. And so starting to build that relationship back up, I got a really good job that, you have to badge in and out. So thankfully, I felt very safe and like, okay, I can badge in and badge out. Okay, I'm good. And then I started to save up some money. I started going to a counselor. I had to meet with a counselor. Gosh, it was like every other week at the beginning, or every week, because I was in such a bad state. And he even now, he's like, I was still the worst client one of the worst clients that he's had, because I wasn't human. I was nothing inside. And so I started going counseling. I started to get connected to the church I was going to. And my physical state, I had all these tests done. I went in and out of doctor's offices I didn't know what was going on. And so then I had to have tests done. And so I started, just physically trying to get healthy again, and just one piece at a time. And as, I'm sure too, health isn't one straight line. It's adding this and taking away that and trying this. Okay, that didn't work very well. Okay, now I'm going to do this. But through all of that, there was always hope, because I'm like, I am not here by accident. I even was ran over by a car when I was 1. I have a scar on my foot right here.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you do.
Yep. And and I have tar on my face from it, and a scar. That's what my eyebrow scar is from. So ever since I was little, I'm like, I'm not an accident. I'm here. I'm shining. And so it just, that started to come back, and I, and then I wanted to also get out of debt, because I was so in over my eyeballs on that too. And So then I knew I had to kind of find a plan that would work for me. And the Dave Ramsey plan was the one that, really resonated with me. So then I started to get out of debt and,
Wow.
started one thing after another and finding my dreams and passions again and realizing like I had nothing, but I knew I was still something as I was like, seeing that hope again, even though there's no hope or it felt like there wasn't any hope, but there's always hope. And I shouldn't be alive today. And even certain situations that happened with my ex, I'm very thankful that I didn't have a similar story as his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for all the listeners and people watching, like I truly commend you for telling this story because it's such a vulnerable story and it puts you out there to the world in this aspect. But I think this is the part of society that I would love to tell people is that, when you see people on social media and you think, oh, they have the best life and there's nothing wrong and they're so perfect. It's like, no, we're all humans and you never know what somebody else is going through. And that's why I really wanted to bring you on here because you have a raw story. You have something that you are so very lucky to be here today. You have the support of your family, which we see that, that's the part that I know. But this is also the part that brought you to it. And a lot of people don't want to hear those stories. And that's my hopes and dreams of this podcast is really kind of getting to that nitty gritty. And for any of our listeners, anybody watching, if you are ever suicidal, if you ever have that thought, if you ever have that fear, reach out to somebody, reach out to whoever it needs to be. Know that you are loved. Know that there is hope. Know that there are resources. We just need to get them for you. It's a very, very scary thought process, and it's a very scary place in your life. So I really do commend you for knowing that it's just one step in the right direction. One step every single day is going to get you to where you want to go. And you've done that fantastically. I mean, there's, you see yourself, you see the radiation coming off of you of like happiness and glow and like your lipstick, like your lipstick is your soul. Like that is who you are. That is Abi Ness. Like that is what I know you of. Right. But like, there's always a chapter in our life. So where are you at right now with it?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that, it's never something that you can just be done with. It's those thoughts that still arise. You're in a location where, what he was doing can still resonate. It can trigger you. Like, what are you doing now in your life to combat that?
Yeah, it's a continual healing and process. And thankfully, it was a handful of years ago, but yeah, there's things that still come up that can potentially trigger me. And I have to focus and realize like, okay, who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? Like, there's, you even see scars or like scars from when I was run over, it's like, I see those and then, I see these scars or emotional scars from the situations that I went through. And I'm like, okay, I've been through hell and back and I fought for my life. And even when these things come up again, I'm like, I was able to, with, the Lord's help, counselors, and sometimes just myself and the Lord in the room, I was able to walk through that. I was able to get through it. Maybe it took a month, maybe it took a week, but now, those things come up. Maybe it'll take an hour, maybe it'll take a day, or, if it keeps resonating, I'm like, I call my counselor, like he's on dial, like he knows that, like, and right. And because there's things that come up that just, you wouldn't even think like, why am I triggered by that? Like, what is going on? But, there's some things that just won't even come up till years later. And like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that was still sitting there. I didn't realize that there was still that, hurt or maybe bitterness or something I didn't even notice before as I was trying to heal in every other area of my life before. But what does help though is, with me running my company, it's a constant reminder of like, what are you listening to? What are you focusing on? Who are you listening to? Because when I do see myself kind of digress or like still think those thoughts of like, oh gosh, I'm just a terrible person. Look at what I did, or why didn't I see the sign? All the regrets and stuff. But then it's like, no, we're all human. We all go through these things in some level. And I love listening to motivational speakers, and not just like, oh, stay positive. It's not about that. It's about how you're talking to yourself, how you are viewing yourself. Like it impacts every area of your life. And I see once I start going away from that, I start, treating myself worse, or I don't, whether with friends or on a date or, with family, I see, red flags or things I need to address for myself or ask them about. And then I'm like, oh no, it's fine. Not a big deal. But so I start like digressing. I'm like, no, like trust your intuition, see what you're, looking at or, needing to address, whether with yourself or it's like an insecurity in yourself, but it's coming out from something that they said. And those things are very triggering. So,
they are very,
yeah.
And sometimes when we're healing from something, we're healing on very specific things. And then, our brain is wired on so many different pathways, and we don't know. It could be a smell. It could be a situation. It could be a sight. Sometimes it could be, like you said, something that just the way that they talk to you. And you're like, oh, wow. Okay, now that's like, I thought I processed this. Now this is coming up. But it's knowing, hey, like this is triggering me. I need to do something about it. And I think you have that self-awareness, which is a huge, huge piece on our mental health, is that self-awareness part. And saying like, hey, I need to take care of this right now. I need to, I need to say something about it, or I need to call my counselor with that. Besides calling your counselor, what are some kind of coping mechanisms that you use?
Yeah, I've been more like, you can call it meditation, you can call it prayer, but pausing and evaluating the situation, because we all can get so busy and just so focused on, now especially that I am full-time with my company, I get so focused on business and doing this and getting this done. And I don't pause and evaluate, where am I at? Like, am I struggling with this? Am I, you can just get off in la la land. So something I've been really trying to do more intentionally is taking time to journal. And like literally sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 5 minutes. But sitting and like processing through things like, I am so frustrated with such and such. I tried this and this didn't work. Maybe it's personal, maybe it's business, but like talking it through and writing it out. And that way it allows myself to feel the feels.
Yeah.
And in so many of the motivational speeches or amazing people on Instagram that I listen to or watch, they often talk about like, allow yourself to feel the feels. Not to stay in the bitterness, not to stay in the depression, but notice it and address it. Like, I am so mad at this, but okay, this is why I think it, like, right. Like start discussing it, having the dialogue with myself. Cause then it allows me the opportunity of like, wow, that is such a silly perspective, or wow, that is really painful. I didn't even notice that, and, but without doing that, I would just go along, oh, that's fine, whatever. And you just bury it.
Yeah.
But similar with my company, like with organizing, as we start burying things and hiding things, it can't be brought up to the light, and they can't be addressed. They can't be looked at. They can't be utilized, because some of those pains, they can be used for such glory, such amazing dreams. But until we look at them, address them, they will be sitting there and be absolute rubbish and garbage. But they could be beautiful diamonds if we let it, though.
Yeah. So tell us about your business. Tell us about everything that you have going on right now.
Yeah. So I started my company 4 years ago. So as I was putting my life back together, I was really making progress. As I was saying, I, really was trying to get out of debt, and I was following the Dave Ramsey plan. So I was starting to make some money, on the side to help me get out of debt. And so as even wanting to start the company, I was like, oh, as I was saying before, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to like start a company. But I was up in, my parents have a lake lodge in Alaska, and they built this from the ground up. It is so majestic. It is so beautiful. And they're living their dream. Like, they literally have built it. They have, I mean, they bring up friends and family and clients, and they bless people with this home. And I was there, and I'm just like, look at what you guys are doing. And not that I have to do that exact same thing, but I'm like, what am I doing with my life, right? I'm putting it back together. My dreams are coming back up to the surface. And my, what my dad had mentioned a while ago, like, why don't you do what you're passionate about and what you love, or try it. So that kept on coming up. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. Like, let's do it. So a couple months later, I started it January 1st, 2018. And, it's ignited that passion of mine, and I loved it. So then, it kind of helped me get out of debt. And then now, when I got out of debt too, since I was following the Dave Ramsey plan, when I got out of debt, I, put up this post. I'm like jumping in the air, wrote debt free on a beach. And then Dave Ramsey reposted it. I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
So cool. And it got, oh my gosh, 15,000 likes or whatever, and got all these messages. Oh, so cool. Like, thank you. Like, hey, I followed his plan, know, and it completely changed my mindset, and it's more of an inside job than an outside job. So I was just, oh, that's so cool. And then a couple months later, MSNBC, CNBC, the Acorn division, they reached out to me and said, hey, we want to do an article on you.
Whoa, so I had no idea.
Okay, that's cool. Let's do that. So they wrote an article about how I was able to get out of debt. And because I also took my youngest sisters, to Disneyland after I got out of debt. Because I'm like, yeah, let's party in Disneyland. I'm such a kid at heart. I'm really not that mature. So I'm like, let's go party at a kid's place. And so, yeah, they used that picture, when we're at Disneyland for like the main photo of it. Yeah. And then even a few months after that, a TV show actually reached out to me as well. And that didn't go anywhere, but it was cool to still have those interviews and have those opportunities for, that potential TV show.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, so all in that process, like, building my business and trying that, it was really impactful. And then last fall, I was starting to realize, like, you know what? I'm not risking anything. Like, sure, it's during a pandemic, but I just felt like I came to that spot in my life that, I love where I'm at. I've really worked my butt off to get to this spot, and I'm doing a great job. I'm like, oh, I'm doing awesome. I love this. But I wanted more. Like, I was like, you know what? There's more important things than just traveling. Mind you, I love traveling. I've been to like over 15 countries. I love it. But I was like, what else? Like, I need to do something additional. So things kept changing in my corporate day job, the one that I had originally gotten years ago as I was putting my life together. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like, what if I lost my job? Because there was just crazy things going on and pandemic and all that stuff. So I was like, what would I do? Well, I'd do this. But deep down, again, the intuition was like, do your company full time. Oh no, I'll like do a side job and then I'll no, I need to do this. And once I like allowed myself to start going that direction of like, oh my word, I think I'm going to. And I took up months. I was like bawling half the time, but my mind was finally like let go. I was able to dream, and not that I wasn't dreaming before, but it came to a whole nother level. But I believe, it happened for multiple reasons, and I felt like it was the Lord that was pressing on my spirit to do this. But once I made that step initially, my mind went 100 miles an hour. The ideas, the dreams, the passion, the spark, the drive, however you want to word it, it ignited. Like my mind was just going a million miles an hour. I'm like, I can't even sleep. Like it just was awesome. And, and then a couple months later, then I actually made the cut from my corporate job. But I was like, if I fall flat on my face and I lose, all my money or whatever, at least I tried. At least I did something. And at least the dream and the ideas that I had, I'm running towards. Like the amazing quote from Les Brown. He talks about how the graveyard is the wealthiest place because that's where all the dreams die. The inventions, the books, the movies, the amazing plays, right? Because people were so scared to not pursue this dream. Like, well, what if nothing happens? Oh, that's not the point.
Like what if something does happen though?
Yeah, exactly. And what you're transforming into during that process is irreplaceable. Yeah. It's just you can't put anything on it.
And that's when you're really living your life. You're like, oh, this is what I was meant for. This is what I was meant for.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I was meant to talk with people on a podcast and connect with them about deep stuff in life, you know? Okay. So tell us more about what your actual company is.
Yeah. So I'm a home and office organizer. So I like my slogan to be, I help people take back the life that stuff stole from them. So I basically help people declutter, minimize, go through all of their stuff, and then make it look pretty and get it organized. But, you know, like I was mentioning, like it's more of an inside job than an outside job. So I like the nitty gritty and helping people walk through that, kind of like a personal coach, to go through all the items. And when I say all the items, I mean all the items, like these random pieces of things here. Like I don't just throw things away for people. Like we literally go through, if it might be garbage, we're going through, do you want to throw this piece of paper away? And, you know, different people have different levels of that, but I go through it all with them. And I'm so passionate about it with them because organizing is great. And that's very important. But the decluttering is the biggest part. It's the hardest part. It's where our hearts are involved, our emotions are involved with it, and it can be really painful and really difficult to address those. Right. But it's the fun stuff that I love.
And you're going into their home, which is already a very vulnerable place.
Yes.
You know, and that's obviously why we see people like holding on to things in their homes, is because that's where they are, and so many emotions tied with there as well. What's like kind of the biggest reason why people hold on to those items?
There's a handful of reasons, but one of the main ones is because of fear in the future that something may or may not happen, fear of something in the past, like fear of letting go of something, an experience, a loved one, kids when they were a certain age, or fear regarding themselves, like fear like, I spent all my money on this and I can't let that go because what if I don't make that amount of money again? Or what if I can't find this item again? Like it's so based in fear, which is an unhealthy place to live anyway. But they're worried and they're scared, and they view the item as something, sometimes as a person. I need to take care of it. I need to give it a home. I need to show that it has purpose. I need to show that it's worth something. But it doesn't have a heartbeat. And, you know, they get really focused on that. But like, oh, what if no one sees how valuable this is? What if someone sees how, or they don't see, you know, it's just so fear-based.
How do you help them get over that?
A process. It takes a process. And, you know, sometimes people, once they're in the middle of it, they start to kind of let loose, like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. Because a lot of times when things are fear-based, it's such a more bigger, scarier picture than what's really happening. Like the example, like, you know, you're so scared of a dog running and chasing you, and once he actually gets to you, he doesn't have any teeth. Yeah. I totally botched the quote, but it's something like that. And so a lot of times when they're actually having me help them, I walk them through it. I'm going through one item at a time. I help them focus. I'm very caring when I go through that process. So then their guard is let down. It's not a family member helping them, right? And they can start seeing like, oh, I thought I had to hang on to that because that was my identity. But actually now that I see it, now that I'm addressing it, now that I'm facing it, it's actually not that big and scary. It's not actually that important to me, right? So once they can actually see it, and that's why I love the process so much, and not just going in and organizing for someone. Again, that's great. But when they're involved, it gets their emotions involved because the clutter started from them. And I know that's a really hard and painful thing, but it'll start and end with them. If they want to address the clutter, they're going to have to address it in themselves as well. And it's such a scary thing, but it's just like with healing, it's just the same with like your physical health. Yeah. It starts and ends with us because it started within us.
Yeah. And if you were to just go into homes and organize them, it would just get unorganized again.
Yeah. And it can too, you know, after we kind of go through and declutter, but when they're involved, they're like, oh, I don't I don't want this to get decluttered
Right.
again because I just went through all that painful process.
Well, and you're teaching them what to do so that they don't buy things frugalously or like whatever they want, or going in and buying 10 things just because, whatever reason it is why we do it, who knows.
Yeah.
You're digging deeper into that self-awareness of them with there. So how can we find you? I mean, if our listeners want to reach out to you, like what would be something that you go and, do in their home, or they could, hire you for? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, website, YouTube. So you can reach out to me on there. And really the first step is to at least reach out to me, and I set up a free consultation. I can do over Zoom or phone call, pictures, in person's best. But yeah, the free consultation then allows me an opportunity to talk with them, see the space, see the area, and talk about like, what is it that you actually want help on? Because, sometimes you just see it and like,
Right.
I just don't like it. Well, okay, talk to me about that. Like, let's get kind of further down and see what their outcome is wanting to be. So, they can reach out to me in any of those routes and set up the free consultation, and then we'll go from there.
That's awesome. So when you go into people's homes, is it like an hourly thing? Is it a day thing? Like, how do you charge them? I feel like that's so different.
Yeah,
For a situation.
Yeah, exactly. I do charge per the hour because there's so many aspects of it that, I wish it was kind of like a easier cookie cutter thing. But when it comes to certain people, sometimes they literally just need the help to declutter. And I've had quite a few clients with this where we just go in and declutter, right? We just take, okay, what's your budget? Okay, cool. Let's do, 4 hours, 10 hours, whatever it is, and just declutter. We're not even doing organizing. And that transforms them. I mean, it's mind-boggling what that does, and it gives them the power. They get to see like, oh my goodness, I can do this. Like, okay, great, and that's just something that they may need. But then other times it really needs to be, decluttering and organizing. So it's per hour, but it just completely depends on what's needed in the situation.
That's so awesome. So while we wrap up, what's something that you wish to teach, or be heard on in the process of suicide? I mean, what is something that if somebody is thinking about doing that you could speak on real quick and help them out?
Yeah. One of the main things is that there is hope. There is always something that can help out in a very difficult situation. It might feel like the worst thing ever, but there's always someone that has gone through something similar. There's always a counselor, a pastor, a friend, a family member. There's always someone that can help. And to also realize that you are not an accident and you are here on this earth for a reason. And we're all unique. We all have amazing talents and abilities. We're amazing human. We are living beings, and there's a reason for that. And just to end it, sure, it's like the easy cop out. Like, there's so many more things that we're created and made to do, and just ending it, it's like, that's too easy. Like, I mean, it sounds terrible, but like, okay, you're stronger than that. You're better than that. Like, you actually can fight for your life and actually get it back. Yeah. So there's hope. Awesome. There's always hope.
Yay. Yeah. Well, thank you, Abi, for coming on. Thank you, listeners, for taking a look at this and hearing what she has to say. So I appreciate it. In the show notes, you'll find all of Abi's contact information. And thank you again, Abi.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for tuning into the show today. Your feedback is very important to me. If you could leave a review, as well as follow me on Instagram at rawthoughts.podcast and email in at m.rawthoughts@gmail.com if you have any guest suggestions.